Hey everyone, it's Sarah Jane here, and today I'm interviewing Tadros, author, communication specialist, and founder of For Life Coaching and Hypnotherapy. Heart inspired and accomplished, Bass is a communication specialist, a performance coach, life coach, trainer, and speaker, and has designed coaching programs, training workshops, and public presentations to help people take control of their life. Bass, welcome.
Hi Sarah, thank you for having me.
So excited to have you here today talking to us. Very grateful to hear about your wisdom and your journey and how you came about to create such an inspiring business. Did you want to just go over a little bit about your journey, how you got started and got in this path today?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, I'm grateful to be interviewed and to have this opportunity to have a chat with you and your listeners and followers. My journey is a colourful journey. I was born in Egypt, in Cairo, as a child and migrated here when I was quite young. So English is my third language because I've had a few travels in between and learned a few languages. And I like to think that that's something that sort of inspired me to be a bit more colourful in the way I communicate with the world. So the experience of, being born overseas, and especially in a country like Egypt, which is full of its own history and it's full of its own culture and wisdom of, ancient civilization. So when I look at my journey, I look at not just my background, I look at my experience with jobs, with languages, with travels, with different countries, with different cultures. And I've been fortunate enough to speak, train, and help people in different countries from different backgrounds, and not always in English as well. So that's always been an adventure. That's always been an exciting thing that I've liked doing. So that tells you a little bit about me. Where did my journey begin in terms of this kind of work, this line of if you like, inspirational stuff? A few years back, I wrote a book called 3 Steps to Inspiration for Life. And that book was inspired by my own journey and my own ups and downs in my own life. Stemming from family stuff that was going on in the background with my parents, to stuff that was happening in my own relationships, to things that were happening around me with people that were close to me, like friends and siblings. And there was a particular incident that led me to decide that I'm pro-life. And the only way to describe pro-life for me was for life. When other people are giving up on their lives, when other people are finding it too challenging to go on and choosing to think, how do I end this? How do I walk out of a relationship? How do I end my life? How do I, whatever it might be that they're giving up on, it made me decide that I'm pro-life, for life. And so hence the book, 3 Steps to Inspiration for Life.
That's awesome. That's such a good story. And how did you get across life coaching and hypnotherapy and the NLP side of stuff? For those of you that don't know what NLP is, Neuro Linguistic Programming, and did you want to go a bit more into that for people at home that don't really know what NLP is?
Yeah, certainly. So going back about a decade, over 10 years ago, I found myself, I was mid-20s. I had a lot of my own challenges at the time, both career-wise, relationship-wise. I was going through all these transitions, and I was going through a few things that made me question, is this the be-all and end-all to life? Do we just, study hard, work hard, and then die hard? Or is there more to life? Quite a lot of people, while I was growing up, were talking about getting a serious education, serious job, serious relationship, and then they'd have a serious heart attack and pass away. Yeah. And my thoughts were, there's more to life than that. And I'm going to start by searching within me. I'm going to start by looking how I can improve me, how I can then improve my life around me by challenging the status quo. And for me at the time, NLP was that cutting edge technology to help you understand yourself, to help you understand how your mind works and how it doesn't work. And I never really imagined or even fantasized at the time that I'd be using it to help others as such. I was just thinking, I'm going to do this as a vehicle to help me move forward in my life and to become a better version of myself. NLP delivered that and more. Like you said, it stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. So just as its name is so fantastic and colorful, I basically learned to understand how my neurons work, how to reprogram them, and how to understand not only my language within how I speak, but my body language and other people's body language. And immediately at the time I was working in marketing, I thought, how can I use this in my day-to-day life? Because if I'm not using it, obviously it's like anything else, I'll lose it. So I started applying it in my marketing job, in my workshops, in my training, in how I spoke to people. And one of the beautiful things about NLP is it teaches you the art of communication. So it teaches you that, say 40% of people, or even up to 60% of people, are visual, and 20% are auditory, and 20% are kinesthetic. And so I thought, let me just use this particular quick model for communication to apply things in my day-to-day life. The way you can tell when people are visual, they'll predominantly be quick speakers like I am, because a picture tells 1,000 words. You see the picture in your head and you speak to it. There'll be people that will kind of be looking around this region with their eyes when they're thinking of something because they're seeing the pictures.
Yeah.
And so the bigger majority, say that 40 to 60% of your audience, I thought when I'm giving a presentation, I want to address the visuals. The auditory people are the people that go, I hear where you're coming from, that sounds good, that rings a bell. And so, they're in about 20% of the population. And the other 20% is kinesthetic, which is feeling. They are, my gut feel tells me this is good, or my intuition tells me this is good. And they're people that are deep. They usually speak slowly, and they look down towards their gut for feelings as they draw on their experience. So in my presentation, I'd go, okay, to start off with, we're going to have lots of visuals. You're going to be seeing this, and that, and you'll also hear a lot more about this, and by the end of it, you'll get a great feel for where this is going. And as I started to use this in my presentation, in my language, I was not only altering the way I present, but I was also experiencing the world differently because I was paying more attention to how other people speak and how they communicate. And then I can communicate in their language, which makes it so much easier and more authentic and more genuine to be able to understand each other and have a deeper connection, really. Yeah. So, as I spoke to friends that were going through new jobs and were going to interviews, I'd explain to them this particular model so that they could be better at the interview and more connected to their interviewer. Yeah. As I spoke to people that were going out looking for a new relationship and dating, I'd say to them, do you know that most girls are actually kinesthetic? Listen to their feelings and talk to them about things that make sense to them. And so I was actually already coaching and using NLP without even knowing that I was doing it years ago. And a few years ago, I decided I wanted to leave the corporate world and start my own business. And as I did this, I got an office and a practice in East Perth, and I'm able to do coaching, which is it's a particular type of coaching. It's not just the generic coaching; it's strategic coaching, and it's mainly aimed at people that are professionals that are going through some sort of transitional period, whether it's at work or in their relationship, and then I help them with a new strategy. I basically, from my experience, I've learned that everything in life comes down to a strategy. And you've either got a strategy that's effective and it's working for you, or you haven't got a good strategy, and so things seem to be, on the verge of breakdown or meltdown, or things are reflecting issues. So, even in your particular field, in your expertise with healthy eating and nutrition and fitness, people either have a good strategy for that and they're using that good strategy and they're keeping fit and eating well, or they don't have a good strategy and they're falling over with temptation in terms of eating the wrong type of food, or not exercising enough, or not time managing. And so it all comes down to strategy.
And I think with your sort of work, it's not just life coaching, it's coming from all different angles, like more emotional coaching, looking at things as a whole picture, mind, body, and soul, instead of just going, oh, this is what I think will work. Well, what have you done in the past? What are you sabotaging? What's really holding you back? And then with the hypnotherapy, it goes even more deeper level into the subconscious. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. This is one of the most amazing tools, and when I researched and studied hypnotherapy, it actually goes back to my ancestors. Hypnotherapy has been used for over 2,000 years,
wow.
And yeah, it goes back to the ancient Egyptians, and it obviously wasn't called hypnotherapy back then, but it was called sleeping beds, and people would go to a particular place where a hypnotherapist, or back then it could have been a priest or a priestess in a temple, that would sit them down or lie them down in a sleeping bed and talk to them. And the ancient Egyptians actually had a really nice philosophy of this. Their thoughts were any ailments, any dis-ease, any issues that we're experiencing in this plane, on this dimension of life, is a disconnect between where we're at here and our higher self. So they thought if you can lay down or rest in this sleeping bed and build that rapport, that connection between who you are here and your higher self, then you're able to actually remove the disease, which is, the disease is just a feedback mechanism letting you know something's not working, so that you can reconnect with your higher self. And
awesome.
So when I did the research and found that, I was pretty fascinated, and it felt like I'm following through not just my life purpose, but I'm also serving, my ancestors' life purpose, not just my own. So in modern day terms, without the priests and priestesses, a hypnotherapist facilitates a connection between your conscious mind and your unconscious mind. So what is this unconscious mind? Well, modern science will tell you that your conscious mind is the part of your mind which is at the forefront here of your head. And it's basically the part that we're using right now to talk logic, to talk conversation. It's also used for measuring, calculating, and so on. It's used 10% of the time. 90% of the time, you're actually using the rest of the iceberg. So this is the tip of the iceberg.
90%.
This is the 90% of the.
Wow.
Yeah, even more than 90%. It accounts for. So your unconscious mind is responsible for regulating your heartbeat, expansion of your lungs for breathing. You don't have to think about those things; they just automatically happen.
Yeah.
And so your unconscious mind is also holding a lot of your beliefs, your mindset, and a lot of these strategies that we talked about. So when we talk about people doing things like self-sabotage, whether it's in a health or in a relationship status, it's mainly done at an unconscious level.
Yeah.
And to really empower somebody beyond the conscious conversation, you need to talk to them in the unconscious state. And if you talk to them in the unconscious state, which is what hypnotherapists do, what I do as a hypnotherapist as well, helps them get the message at a deeper level, and then they're able to utilize it, and it changes their programming, if you like. So one of the other ways you can, I suppose, look at that is if you were to say an affirmation, most people these days understand that having a positive affirmation is a good thing to have in your life, whether it's to do with your fitness, whether it's to do with your finances, your health, relationships, your career. An affirmation is only very, very limited when you're repeating it in a conscious state, because there is a filter between your conscious and the unconscious mind, which is called the critical faculty. And that filter goes, hang on a minute, how could you be repeating an affirmation saying, I'm a millionaire, or I'm skinny and healthy, when I look at the mirror or I look at my bank account, it doesn't reflect that. So that critical faculty sparks up instantaneously and kind of puts a hang on a minute, kind of pause, stop, recheck this. Whereas when you do the affirmation in an unconscious state, in a hypnotized state, let's say, and whether it's self-hypnosis or whether it's done with a professional through hypnotherapy, it sinks in at a whole different, deeper level, and it's a lot more useful because there is no critical faculty. It's actually accepted as this is a reality in a time and place, and time doesn't exist in this reality. It could be the future, it could be the past, it could be the present, but I'm going to accept this and work with it. and you move forward, and it's part of who you are. So it's really great, and I think it's a good way. I always say to people, whether they're a CEO or whether they're an executive striving to do better and achieve more and create success and build their financial success, I always say to them, you need to sometimes get out of your own way to build your success, because you're so intelligent and you're so chunked up in here in your mind. You need to get out of your own way and create that success unconsciously.
Yeah, sure. And I definitely agree with that, getting out of your own way, because sometimes we dwell on stuff and procrastinate, and a lot of people actually have the fear of, so the fear of failure, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of stuff like that, and that sometimes can stem from a lot of childhood stuff. Like the fear of not being good enough might be when you came home, you showed your mum your homework, but it's not good enough, and then you carry on that belief system all your life, and then you don't really know where it comes from, but in your subconscious you don't remember that time where that happened. But what's like one tip you would give people if they really want to come from this identity to really move into the next stage of their life, but say fear's holding them back, or they got a little story in their head that they're not good enough? What would be like your one tip to get to the next level in your life?
Just drawing on my own experience and on the thousands of clients that I've worked with, if fear is holding you back from progress, and if fear is dictating what you should or shouldn't do in your life, then you really need to look at that and confront that fear. I've found in my own life that fear is just an illusion. It's something that I have created in my mind. It's a perception, it's a fantasy, if you like, and as soon as I confront it, I can get through it. In fact, instead of letting my fear tell me what not to do, I use my fear as my motivator, and usually where my fear is, that's where I need to break through to get to the next level of who I'm going to be, and so that I can be the best me that I can be. So my advice on fear is use it as a guide, as a compass of where you should be heading, rather than what you should be running away from.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And you're some of the fears are picked up and learned from a very young age. Again, studying neuroplasticity and the neuromind, I've learned that we're born as children, as infants, with only two fears. The fear of loud noises, because we don't understand where it's coming from, and it sounds very foreign to us, this loud noise, and the fear of falling over, obviously because we can't walk and our legs aren't strong enough to hold us. Yeah. So they're two built-in natural mechanisms of fears that are protecting us, but they're also, they kind of make sense as well at that time as an infant. Most people are no longer afraid of loud noises, and most people aren't afraid of falling over as much anymore because they can stand on their feet. But what they've learned between infancy and where they're at now is all these other false fears, whether it's fear of speaking in public, or whether it's fear of death, whether it's fear of spiders or snakes, or whatever it might be, fears of heights. They can actually unlearn that. So whatever that fear might be for them, they can unlearn it.
Yeah.
Just like you've learned it, you can unlearn it.
Yeah. And
now, I write about this in my book.
Oh, yeah? The fear? Oh, cool. And
so...
Yep, you go.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, fear is false evidence appearing real. Have you heard that one?
Absolutely, exactly. I have, and I love that one. I think that's a really nice way to put it, actually, because that resonates with me. I really believe that fear is just a made-up fantasy.
Yeah. Cool. And I put up on Facebook this week that I was going to interview you on Facebook, and I just said if anybody's got any questions, just to give me a PM, private message, and we can talk about it. So I had a few questions come through. Do you want to roll through them? Yeah?
Absolutely.
Cool. So how do we actually come to self-sabotage ourselves? How does that come about?
Yeah, this comes back to the unconscious mind, and I'll build on this for a second. I've not yet met a person that's on purpose not wanting to achieve greatness, that's on purpose trying to eat unhealthy when they know that they should be eating healthy. Yeah, they're usually doing it unconsciously. They're usually doing it without even realizing why they're doing it or how they're doing it. But I'm going to use an example for this, which will help a lot of people understand that a little bit better.
Yeah.
When I first started doing my hypnotherapy work, I had a number of clients that came to me for things like sugar addictions. And, their questions were, how can I get over a sugar addiction? And I said, okay, what makes you think you have a sugar addiction? Let's just first quantify and qualify that. Did you wake up one morning and think I have a sugar addiction, or is this something that you've seen happen in your life over a number of days, years? And so they said, yep, for the last 12 months, I have been craving sugars, and I've been eating all types of sugars, whether it's lollies or chocolates or ice cream or whatever is sweet. And I said, okay, great, what happened 12 months ago? And, again, it's a number of clients, it's a number of people, it's not just one individual. And they've all gone, what do you mean? And it's a question that's thrown them. But it's like you said before, I like to deal with things at a holistic level and to understand things from more than one dimension, from different aspects, if you like.
Yeah.
And so understanding where it stemmed from 12 months ago can give us a lot of telltale signs what the root cause might be.
Yeah.
And so they basically have to search back in their mind. Sometimes the mind doesn't even want you to go back that far and search that, because it's kind of like a suppressed memory. And that's exactly what this particular client that I'm thinking of at the moment as I'm repeating this story was going through. You could see on their face the changes and the discomfort, if you like, of having to associate or get into that memory. And as this person did that, they said, yeah, I had a breakup. I had a nasty breakup 12 months ago. And I said, right, well, do you think that perhaps there's some sort of relation to the sugar addiction and to that feeling of being, brokenhearted and going through that experience? And at the time, the person was really dumbfounded. How did I get to this? How did we get to that sort of part of the issue so quickly? I'm a big believer that NLP actually gives you, and hypnotherapy gives you, quick results and deals with things immediately. Like right now, in this second, let's deal with something, rather than years of therapy and years of counseling and years of repetitive practice of you telling the story. Let's just get straight to the root cause and deal with it.
Yeah.
And so the person had to confront that, yes, there was a sour breakup. Yes, there were some things that were undealt with, that were kind of swept under the carpet. And as we dealt with that and cleared that all up, needless to say, the sugar addiction and the craving was gone, and there was no longer a substitute of a sweet craving for a sour situation. If you know what I mean. So that was kind of a really good example of exactly the self-sabotage that we can do. It's unconscious, and so we need to deal with it at an unconscious level. One of my favorite sayings in this kind of work is, don't look for an external solution to an internal problem.
Yeah.
So people that are going through a depressive state or whatever it might be, if they're looking for a pill to take that's going to get them out of that, well, that's looking for an external solution to an internal problem. It's just like saying people that have a headache are looking for a Panadol. It's not the Panadol that will actually fix the headache. It's the glass of water that you're having with the Panadol.
Yeah.
It's rehydrating the brain and helping you, be rehydrated, because the headache is just symptoms of being dehydrated.
Totally agree with that. And I, in the last year, I've been doing a lot of self-development. I've always been into personal development and self-development, but in the last year, I've just gone a bit deeper. And it was funny because I went to a healer in Bali, and I've always had bad skin. And I talked to her about, because I had a family breakup, my parents stopped talking, I moved out of home when I was about 15. And then this lady asked me, how long's your skin been going on? Like, what age did your skin start getting bad? And I was like, around 15. What happened then? Family breakup. Didn't even think of it. Didn't even cross my mind. And yeah, after I came back from Bali, my skin's been pretty good, just because getting out of that stuff, dealing with it, being able to talk to someone about it as well, to have someone to listen to that. And it never crossed my mind that that would be the case. So I guess you're, you are a holistic healer. You're looking at everything in a different point of view that people might not think about that. And such a good point to cover.
In terms of heart-centered connection and heart-centered work that I do, I basically believe at my core that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So if we're spiritual beings having a human experience, that means we have a spirit that our body is housing. So the body is very, very important in this connection with the spirit, because the body, the healthier you are and the healthier you eat, the more you can get in touch with that spirit.
Definitely.
And it's exactly like the old saying that the body is the temple for the spirit. So the body also holds a lot of the scars, if you like, of some of the unresolved spiritual issues that we have, whether it's issues that have stemmed from our parents or stemmed from broken relationships. The spirit experiences, it gets hurt, and the body stores it. And if we don't deal with it, and if we don't actually confront it and face it and clear it, then that body is either holding it and it's showing up in aches and pains that are causing you to go to the chiropractor for your neck, your spine, your back, or it's holding it in skin conditions as you described, or it's holding it in sugar cravings, or even craving fats and things like that. And the more you're able to deal and resolve and clear all these, people used to think it's psychological issues. Let's call it spiritual issues that are impacting not just your spirit, they're also impacting the rest of your body.
For sure. That's cool. Definitely.
It's beyond the cycle.
Definitely agree with that. How do we program our mind to think positive?
Sure. This is one of my absolute favorite sayings, and I'm going to say that probably a lot because I have a lot of favorite sayings.
Yeah.
I like to think about the importance of focus. As you say that, what that triggers for me is what we focus on is what we create in our life.
Definitely, yeah.
So if we're focusing on negativity, or we're focusing on stuff that's not working, or things that aren't showing up in our life, or what's missing, we're creating more of this, this disparity, if you like.
Yeah.
But if we focus on what we have, and we focus on what we can create and what we can do, we feel abundant and we create it.
Yeah, you've been watching The Secret, haven't you? You've been
watching. Absolutely. Definitely. I'm living proof of that. What you focus on is what you create.
Yeah.
I went through a period of my life where I was single for about 7 years, and I could have spent a lot of time harping on the fact that I was single and what's missing in my life. But in fact, what I did is I used a lot of that time in those 7 years creating a vision. What would that partnership look like? What would my family look like? Yeah. What kind of things would we be doing together? I love traveling. Would she love traveling? And how much travel can we do? And so, sure enough, 3 years ago, I manifested and created an amazing relationship with my beautiful wife. And we've been traveling. We've created businesses together. We have a beautiful baby, Alexander, who was born 2 months ago. And so it's an incredible part of my life. And in those 7 years, I actually created a lot of success. I created my success in the corporate world. I built businesses. I had a lot of investment properties show up because I was thinking about what I do have. And therefore, abundance was showing up and things were showing up in my life. Yeah. If I just focused on what was missing, I would have been a single, lonely, miserable guy that's out there desperately looking for a companion. And most women aren't attracted to that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely not. We like people that know what they want.
Exactly. You focus on what you want and you create it. And I like to think, I grew up with 3 younger sisters, that women are actually very intuitive, and women can look at a person and quickly start to feel within them what's happening for that person. Yeah. So if that person is the kind of person that feels needy and something's missing, they feel that and they're like, I don't know, is this the kind of person I want to have as a partner? Yeah. But if it's a person who's driven and focused and knows what they want, and is open to inviting somebody else into their life and creating a harmonious relationship, then again, that's sensed, it's felt, it's accepted, and it's in most cases welcomed.
Yeah. So for your clients, do you tell them, do a lot of visualization? Like if someone comes to you, I'm missing this sort of thing, do a lot of visualize, what do you want? Like a lot of people go on and they're, oh, I don't want this, I don't want that. But then they never ask for what they want. So they always just get given whatever, you know. If you don't ask for what you want, then you're just going to get given anything.
Yeah, well, I'll answer that in two parts. So in terms of the focus part that I was talking about before, if you're focusing on what you want, you sometimes don't even have to think about what you don't want.
Yeah.
I like to think of the example of going into a restaurant.
Yeah.
When a waiter or waitress comes up to you and shows you a menu with a whole list of things, you normally just go to them, I would like this. You wouldn't go, I won't have that, and I won't have that, and I won't have that, because you'd be there all day.
Yeah.
It's just easier to point at what you want and select that. So focusing on what we want, it gives clear signals to the universe, it gives clear signals to other people around us, and it gives us a clear signal what we're trying to create in our life.
Yeah.
The visualization part of that is very, very important. The unconscious mind doesn't actually know the difference between what we're visualizing, whether it's happening now or happening in the future or happening in the past, and if it's for real or if it's just something that you're striving towards. Yeah. So if you're visualizing that you're healthy and you've got a healthy physique and you're eating healthy every day and you're having a great time doing it, then you're more likely to actually achieve that.
Yeah, nice.
Whereas if you're visualizing the opposite and you are seeing yourself in the mirror and you weren't happy with your body and you said a lot of negative things about what you don't want, like pinching your body and saying, I don't want this and I don't want that, the body doesn't it doesn't understand that and it doesn't compute that at an optimal level because it creates confusion and it starts to think, I don't understand the negative. What do you mean? Do you want that? Do you want more of that? And sometimes it shows more of that. Just like when I said, well, if you focus on what's missing, it creates more of what's missing.
Yeah, nice.
So I like to think about what I do have and appreciate what I have. Yeah. And I have a lot of gratitude in my life for what I have. And it's like, the saying goes, the more you're grateful for what you have, the more you're given to be grateful for.
Definitely agree.
So, I've done a meditation just recently and I'd like to reflect on that for a moment. And part of this meditation actually made me feel that I was a newborn child. So I saw life all of a sudden again and I felt like I was being reborn. And things as little as your fingernails that we don't quite appreciate enough became something that I was so grateful for. Things like the movement and mobility of our fingers, to hold things and to be able to touch, the sense of touch, became something I was eternally grateful for, even the simplest of things. Yeah. And so, sometimes by having the visualizations and the meditations, we could really get into a grateful state of mind and harmonize our life rather than be in a part of our life where we're thinking, this isn't good enough, that isn't good enough, this isn't good enough, this is missing, we should have that. And that creates a whole lot of debacles.
Yeah, I definitely agree because we live in such a fast-paced world now. We have to get this car, like marketing's pushing us in all different directions. Only this hair's beautiful. We get caught up in this materialistic world. But because I go to Bali so often, I see this third world country, people are begging and some of them are just sitting there and they're just enjoying their life doing nothing. And it's like, that's so cool. We get caught up in being busy. And then when you actually just sit there and just enjoy life, it's just the simple things. I think, you start off like when I started doing meditation and asking for what I want and being grateful for what I want, I actually started okay, I'm grateful for the house I live in, the car I drive, the friends I have, the family I have. And then as you keep doing meditations and being grateful, like you said, touch, like that's a good one. I've never heard that. But you just, little things, like just keeps going down to, even the feet. Like I did this meditation and took me through, be grateful for your right hand, your left hand, your feet that have taken you to walk. And it's like, whoa, you really need to just sit back and actually realize how special life is and all the little bits in between. So, yeah, that's really good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even like to be able to feel the expressions on our face, to be able to smile and to feel that on your face, they're the simplest of things, and they're so profound and so beautiful, and they're things that I'm eternally grateful for. Even appreciating people that come into our lives. It's easy. It's very easy to say, I appreciate my parents. I appreciate my loved ones. But, I'm talking about going to a deeper, a whole new level of appreciation for even people that have showed up in your life that were challenging, people that have showed up in your life that have taught you difficult lessons. And when you learn to express that kind of gratitude, it shows up. It shows up on every single cell of your body as an optimum, healthy, beautiful cell that's creating more health, that's shining bright, and that has so much, not just gratitude, but love for all beings, and there's less judgment, there's more compassion.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's pretty beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Next question was, what is the best way to start to make a change?
Okay. My teacher of NLP was someone that I hold in very high regards. I absolutely love the guy, and he used to say this a lot. He used to say, when is now a good time to start? When is now a good time to start? Which means now is always the best time to start. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not next week, not next year with next year, new resolutions and so on. You immediately start now. And how would you make a good start? You start by working from within. Sometimes people want to change the world and they want to change their partner. A lot of people tell me, my partner does this and does that. And I say, bring him here and I'll work with them and you'll feel better. It doesn't quite work like that. You need to work within you, and you need to face what is it that's working or not working within you that you can improve, and you can start now, rather than waiting for something else to happen or somebody else to change. Make the change now, make the start now, and own it from within, that it's your change, it's your responsibility, it's your life, and you can choose to design your life to the way you want it to be, or you could choose to sit in the back seat and pretend that somebody else is designing your life for you.
Yeah.
And I would always choose to be in the driver's seat designing my life, because it's my responsibility, it's my life. Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, how can I make Bass's life better? I need to wake up. I need to decide, how can I make my life better? How can I be a better person? How can I connect within myself? How can I connect with others? And do that with respect, with love, with absolute kindness and compassion. Yeah. And so the best way to start is start by looking at what area in your life do you want to address. Write it down, and then start thinking about a new strategy. I'm more than happy with the first part of that, to work with people, to create a strategy with them that's strong. I've obviously got a bit of experience in this, and that could help them rather than having to do it on their own. They could have someone who's experienced and trained to help them set up a good strategy, and then they're off and running with that. Yeah. And not to say that when we start something new and you have a strategy that it's never going to have hiccups. There's always going to be speed humps and some hurdles along the way. Yeah. But it's about how you address that, and what's your strategy to deal with that. Yeah. Do you have a strategy of coping, or do you have a strategy of when things show up that you weren't expecting, that you're going to be full of surprises and shocked, and it's going to take you off your path? Yeah. So, I think a lot of people too out there love planning. And then when things don't go to plan, or when things don't go to their expectation, they're disappointed and they're down in the pits. Yeah. So there's got to be a counterbalance. Then there's people out there that don't like planning at all. They're like winging it and just going with the flow and letting whatever happen and show up in their life. And that's also got its ups and downs, because things are going to show up that are unexpected, and they're not going to know exactly how to deal with those things. And there will be things that might take them off course, and then that might confuse them. And so I always try and tell people, have a balance where you can see the positives and negatives in life and realize whether you've got a plan or you don't have a plan. Expect the unexpected, and deal with that. Factor them in.
Yeah, and I think writing it down is so powerful. Like I personally have always been a writer, but when I say to people, "What's your three goals for this week?" and they go, "Oh, I've really thought about that," and then when I actually get them to write them down, it's like setting it in concrete, and they really just stick to it. Yeah, and yeah,
The mind is a wonderful, absolutely wonderful, powerful, creative tool. Let's call it that for now. And when it writes things down, exactly as you said, that's the first part of creating it. Because not only have you thought it and maybe even visualized it, but you've also put it down in pen and paper, which means you've actually done some sort of a creative form. And what you've also done is relieved your mind from having to repeat it all the time to remind you that you've got to pay your bill on Monday, or that you've got to go renew your license on Tuesday, or whatever it might be. When you write it down, you get it out of your head, it stops re-looping, and then you can put next to it a date, or put next to it a time, put next to it important or urgent. And I think that changes a lot of things for people. Once they prioritize things like that, it really changes their life.
Yeah, definitely. And you said, so you work with people to do a strategy, and you were telling me before about your workshops that you've got coming up. Do you do that sort of stuff in the workshops?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got some free workshops that are coming up that I'm offering to viewers and followers. They're going to be running every fortnight, starting from the 31st of October till probably mid-December. And then obviously I'll review that for next year. And the plan is it's basically a short workshop that runs from 10 a.m. to about 1 or 2 p.m. in the afternoon on a Saturday. And so that way, most of my clients are professionals. They're able to come in on a Saturday morning. It's a nice part of Perth, to East Perth, so they can do that and then head off and do the rest of their day. But it's a workshop that's aimed at helping you understand the importance of mindfulness and hypnotherapy and all the great stuff that we've been talking about. There's a lot of secondary benefits that come from facing this kind of work and facing that kind of part of you within you, and connecting deeper within you, because then all the answers that you need are here, and you're able to connect to those answers rather than searching everywhere and looking externally for something that you have built in within you.
Definitely.
So it's a really exciting thing. I love doing these workshops. I love talking to people and helping people out, and really presenting new solutions for people that are thinking and living in a state of problems, if you like. So I present opportunities. I present support where they're seeing challenge or where they're seeing an issue. I show them the solution.
Yeah, awesome, cool stuff. What other questions? You went through the hypnotherapy session. What happens there? What are your top tips for keeping a positive mindset through tough times?
Breathing is definitely an important one. One of the things that I teach my clients is the importance of taking 3 deep diaphragmatic breaths. And so as you breathe and you just calmly and gently inhale in and then exhale out, and you do this just for a number of breaths, you're able to actually reconcentrate. You're basically on a physical level, if you want me to describe it on that, you're adding more oxygen into your blood cells, which is then being pumped around by your heart around your body and circulated to your brain, which, basically the more blood and oxygen that's going to the brain, the more the brain is able to think more clearly and more effectively and come up with better strategies and deal with whatever the situation may be. So that's definitely one of my top techniques.
Yeah, awesome. Through tough times. And say you're having like a bad day, and you know when you get those days where you're like, one thing happens wrong, then the second thing, and you're like, whoa, what's going to happen for the third thing? And it's just been one of those weeks, and it's just, you're not thinking straight, and you're just having a bad week. What would you say helps the most? Like doing your affirmations or visualizing, or what would help in that situation?
Definitely focusing on the solution. So it goes back to, where do I want to focus? Do I want to focus more on the problem and create more of the problems around me? And it goes from 1 to 2 to 3. Or do I want to focus on the solution? And if I focus on the solution, then I can just let go and just breathe and trust that the solution will resolve the situation. If other things show up, I'll deal with them too. That's okay. I will just deal with them. And if people start to think like that and talk to themselves like that, it becomes a very effective way of actually dealing with whatever comes up in your life, whether it's in your personal and direct life, or whether it's something that's affecting a family member or a loved one. You're able to deal with it from a very constructive and objective sort of side. So, one of the things that they teach AMBOs, for example, is that when you see a crisis situation, don't run in, because what could happen is if the person had slipped on the road, for example, from an oil spill, and they've fallen over and concussed their head against the road, then you don't want to be lying there beside them. You want to walk up to the person, take your time, take it slow, take a few deep breaths, assess the situation, and then deal with it.
Nice.
And so it's the same with any challenge or any crisis. If you go into it with the panic state, with the fast breathing, with the rush of trying to get it over, you're more likely to actually create more obstacles around you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you deal with it with the consciousness of, I'm just going to breathe and I'm going to deal with this, and whatever else shows up, I can deal with that too.
Nice. Yeah, cool. Awesome. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, well, bearing in mind that the universe never sends us a challenge that we can't deal with.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that whatever challenges we're faced, we've got the solution and we know how to fix them, and they're there just to help us grow.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. Instead of thinking, oh, why is this happening to me, and kind of victim mentality, to turn it and be like, oh, I wonder what this is teaching me, or how is this helping with something that's coming up. Perfect. Change
I talk a lot about this. Exactly. It's just a different perspective, like you're saying. And I talk a lot about this in my workshops as well, because one of the real important basis of this kind of work is not getting into that victim mentality. It's taking responsibility. And it comes back to the cause and effect. Are you living in the cause, or are you living in the effect? If you're in the effect, you're usually affected by everything and everyone around you. You're affected by the weather. I was planning to have a great picnic with my family, and the weather turned bad. Now it's going to be a terrible day, and you just turn it into a terrible day instead of going, okay, well, what can we do inside? And where can we go to have a great time? And let's just sit together and, like you were saying before, and just enjoy our time together. It's the simple things, right? And so living in the cause can really create a whole world of solutions, rather than being in the effect, which creates a whole world of victim mentality and issues.
Yeah. That's awesome. And you keep going on about your book, The 3 Steps for Inspiration to Life. Where can people find out more about this?
Sure. So it's on Amazon, but if people were to go onto my website as well, fullifecoaching.com.au, they'd be able to email me, and I could, basically send them an e-copy if they like. But it is on Amazon, and you can get it a print version through Amazon that way. It's 3 Steps to Inspiration for Life by Tadros, and I'm sure they'll find it pretty easy read. I used a lot of hypnotic language in there, so it can sink in at a deeper level. And 3 steps are really very easy to follow and very easy to understand. It's from understanding who you are, to understanding connection, to being able to connect deeper, and being mindful in the way that you do things. So it's a good book, and it was inspired by one of my dear and loved people in my life that was going through a hard time, and through the experience that she was having, through a very dark experience, I was able to see a light, and I was able to see that inspiration could really turn things around. And so it turned things around for her, and it's turned things around for a lot of my friends and clients that have read it.
Oh, nice. And if people want to hear about the workshops and get in contact with you, is your website the best way to get you?
So I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, but through the website, it's probably a good one. It's an easy way, and through the website, they've also got links to the other Facebook pages and things that are on there, or even a contact number if they want to call and ask questions. It's also got the address to the office. So I think the website's the best way to go.
Cool. I'll put a link below for anyone that wants to jump on there. And I think that's it. I want to do a quick 5 of my favourite things to ask you. Is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah. What's your favourite food?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. What's my favourite what, sorry?
Food. Favourite food.
Favourite food.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going through a particular phase at the moment, which is a very, very healthy phase of my life. I mean, I've mostly been able to eat pretty good food, but I've also had a mentality of whatever my body feels like and whatever my body's calling for, I'll have. But particularly lately, my favorite food is dates. I absolutely love having a couple of dates in my cereal. It's a snack that I can have any time in the day. And, you know, we can get some pretty nice dates from, you know, organic fruit stores and so on. But yeah, we're heading towards summer, so I'm also complementing that with a lot of mangoes.
Yeah,
so
nice.
Mainly,
Yum. Where's your favourite place to be?
Favourite place to be is at home with my newborn and my wife at the moment. But I love going and sitting, you know, in front of the ocean and going to the beach as well.
Yeah.
So usually I take them with me to the beach.
Yeah, and you said before you have a few favourite quotes. Do you have a top quote that you like?
Yeah, top one that I live by is to know and not to do is not yet to know, which basically means if you know something but you're not applying it in your day-to-day life, then you don't really quite know it. So to say, yeah, I know this, yeah, I know that, yeah, I know that about the deep breathing stuff. Are you actually applying it? Are you actually doing it? And when the going gets tough, that's the most important time to be applying it. It's not just when you're relaxed or when things are going hunky-dory, but it's more when you're getting challenged, whether it's at home by your partner or by your children, or whether it's out in the office or out in the street and people are doing silly things on the road. Apply it. You take deep breaths and go, what they do is their karma, how I react to it is my karma. Definitely. That's another one.
Awesome. Favourite thing to do on a Sunday? Do you reckon the same thing? Beach and hanging out with your family?
Sure, absolutely. But I'll throw another one in there, and it's to go to the markets and pick up fresh fruits and vegetables and as organic as possible foods. Cool. That's another one that I love.
And what's your favourite exercise?
I love push-ups. I've always loved push-ups since I was a kid. It probably explains why I've got a pretty strong chest and shoulders and you know, triceps, but I absolutely love push-ups. I think any exercise where it's free weights, you're not sitting in a gym machine per se, nothing against gym machines, but any exercise that you can actually do using your own body weight is a great exercise.
Awesome. Thank you so much for letting me interview you today. I'm sure a lot of people would got a lot out of that, and thanks for your wisdom. I definitely got a few things from that.
Excellent. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'd be happy to do it again. You never know. The next time you interview me, it could be a completely different interview.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much for taking the time, and anyone that wants your website, I'll put it below the interview.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.